And Brother Dan here. We have another very special guest here today with us. I simply call her Sister Ella, and she's known for being that sexy fit vegan. So, first of all, I'm going to just put it right out front. I'm super excited to have you here. Just looking at your background, you've done so much, and just to share the space with you is just phenomenal. And I like to say, so you built this incredible movement, right? And it's all around the idea that sexy, fit, vegan is about much more than food and fitness. And it's more about a mindset, also being in alignment and living 100% authentically. So I love to dive into layers of your journey, the psychology behind it, also how you've gone through different behavioral changes with this lifestyle, and what keeps you going deeper and deeper into this mission. Because I've been,
My journey started, I think it's important to, because I've kind of known my life's purpose since I was very young. I think it's worth sharing how I kind of discovered the reason I feel like I'm here on Earth. And it was actually when I was 7 years old, and I got in the car after school one day, and my mom asked me how school was, and I told her that we had learned about Daniel Boone in school. And do you guys know who Daniel Boone is? Yeah. For
yeah.
anyone who doesn't know, who might be listening, he's one of our first American folk heroes, and he was a wilderness guy, and he carried around a shotgun, and he wore his raccoon hat,
Mhm.
um, and I told my mom, I said, this guy was supposed to be a hero. I said, but he was a really mean man. He shot and he killed and he ate animals. And my mom was really honest with me, and she kind of looked back and she said, well, Ella, we're just really fortunate nowadays. We don't have to do that for ourselves anymore. We just go to the grocery store and buy our meat there. And it was really that moment that I connected the meat on my plate with the actual animal that it was. And it was this huge light bulb moment for me. And I was kind of like horrified. And
Mhm.
I told her right then and there, well, I'm not going to do that anymore. And I never ate meat again, but I got in touch with certain groups that were spreading the information, and I learned about how all the industries are connected. So by the time I turned 15, went totally vegan, and really throughout my childhood, I just felt very connected to the suffering that animals went through. And I felt really connected to farm animals being these amazing creatures that are not not really unlike our dogs and cats. And it was really hard for me to understand why we were eating some of them and loving on some of them, and why some deserve to live and some. And I was a gymnast. I've been an athlete since I was 5 years old, in gymnastics and taekwondo and swimming, and I was competitive, and I was training in 4 hours a day, as a kid. And I was able to do all of that, eating kind of the side dishes on my parents' dinner table, until they really realized that this was not a phase. And they actually followed suit eventually, pretty much most of my family. Yeah.
um, what does sexy mean to you now, and how has that definition evolved over the years?
I mean, you hit the nail on the head with that evolution of that word. So it was around 2013, 2014. I was living in Miami. I grew up in North Carolina, but moved down to Miami in my early 20s. And, you know, at that time, there was very few people that even really understood what the word vegan was. I
Yeah.
competed in a bodybuilding competition in 2007, just to, start to spread the word and show that you can be fit and you can be strong and you can be muscular. And, there were so many stereotypes around what a vegan was, and they had to be, really hippy dippy or scrawny or really angry
Mhm.
up on their soapbox. There are all these ideas of what a vegan was. And around 2013, 2014, people were starting to know it was starting to become more familiar. And here I am in Miami, kind of living a pretty crazy life at that moment here. And I really wanted to break all those stereotypes. And I thought, what's the best way to market? And this, times have evolved a lot since 2013, but, sex sells. So at that moment, when I created this brand, I was like, let's make vegan, sexy. Let's make it
Mm.
really different. Let's make it appealing to the mainstream, because what I wanted to do was just really bring it into the mainstream and normalize it. So first, this Miami brand, Sexy Fit Vegan. Now, I started to, after forming that brand, really started to evolve myself and really coming into my own as a human, as a woman, as somebody who really is a spiritual person. I had gotten into yoga. I started to really explore deeper senses of spirituality. And so, as that happened, and I started working with people, not only as a coach, not only to help them make more plant-based choices in their lives and be healthier, but to also start to evolve their relationship with food and their bodies, and to especially working with women who had issues with, disordered eating or, food issues of binging and restricting. And was something I was very familiar with because I struggled with that in my 20s, especially being in the fitness world, being in the bodybuilding world where everything really revolves around aesthetics and how your body looks. And I got very hyper vigilant about that and counting all my calories and macros in that moment. So as I healed my relationship with food and my body and myself, and started to then coach other people, especially women, to help heal their relationship with food and their bodies, this whole evolution of what that word sexy means started to really come into play. And it really started to evolve into this place of being confident, of being aligned, like that word alignment. When we're talking about vegan living, it's all about aligning with the value of compassion for animals. And
Mm.
this feeling that I wanted to share with people of what it feels like to really align your actions with what you truly care about in life. There's something really powerful and really beautiful about that feeling. And so I kind of started redefining sexy as that alignment, that confidence, that moving through the world super authentically and being really true to yourself and your values.
So, at what point along your journey did you get that confirmation, like, yeah, I'm doing the right thing? Because you hear so much negative in regard to being a vegan. You're not getting enough protein and this and that and the other. So, when did you get that confirmation that all that was just a bunch of chatter and you were on the right
But
path?
when it came to this taking a stand for this belief of mine, there was no stopping me. So
Mm.
I was super shy, but there was never a moment in my life where I felt unsure about
Mm.
that decision. I felt so sure of that from that very young age that, in middle school, I was running campaigns. In high school, I was leading, back then I was doing animal rights activism in a different way, because in more of a direct way, because I thought that it was just that people didn't know what was happening behind the closed doors of factory farms. And that's the reason that people were not moving in that direction. So I
Mm.
was like, I've got to tell people, I've got to share. And of course, I was, young, and in my
Yeah.
young mind, I was like, well, if I just share the information, they're going to immediately go vegan like me.
Right.
So it was, yeah, it was a bitter pill to swallow. That it was very ingrained thought patterns of how we should live and what we should eat. And just making changes to our eating habits is really challenging for a lot of people. So a lot of people just are not really interested in knowing. So yeah, there was never a question in my mind that if I wasn't sure I was doing the right thing. It was always a matter of, well, how can I best share this information in a way that will be really helpful to people and receptive, and will help them be receptive to the information, so that then they can make their own educated decisions about what they
Mm.
put in their bodies and what they choose to support with their dollars in a way. So So it's more been about how can I best inspire people? How can I bring this really positive attitude and present this in a really positive way, meeting people where they are and allowing them to open their minds enough to at least absorb the information so they can make decisions based on what their true values are.
So you're saying that your veganism is more because of your activism and not so much the health aspects?
For me, veganism is has everything to do with compassion.
Okay.
And but if we think about compassion, right? Sometimes I think I was the last being on earth that I really locked in compassion for. A lot of
Mm.
times we forget that we are beings too, and that it's important to have compassion for ourselves. And if we're being compassionate to ourselves, then yeah, we are feeding our bodies with fuel that is clean, that will help us feel good, that will energize us, that'll keep us free from disease. So it is an act of compassion. I think there's some room there, to have a healthy lifestyle and still include some animal products. So I think there's so we kind of distinguish that as plant-based living. And then the veganism really brings in this kind of ethical aspect that I'm doing this for a much bigger reason outside myself. A lot of more ethical reasons to be vegan than the plant-based. A lot of people are doing that to prevent cardiovascular disease. When we cut out the animal products, we're cutting out a lot of the saturated fats and the things that are causing people, cardiovascular disease, and heart disease is our number one killer. So there are a lot of reasons to eat a whole foods, plant-based diet for our health, for sure.
Question to that is, I understand carnivores, I understand the vegans. Why not vegetarian?
Yeah, great question, Dan. So this is something that, I started out vegetarian until I learned about the industries, the egg and dairy industries, and how when we're supporting those industries, we're also supporting the meat industry and we're supporting a lot of cruelty because the modern way our food system works is when a calf is born, like for dairy cows are artificially inseminated. This is, in factory farming situations, which is 90% of, I'm not sure the percentage, but most of our food is coming from those. They're artificially inseminated. They give birth. Their babies are ripped away from them. You'll hear farmers and people talk about the mother cows bellowing for days that their baby has just been taken away. They're hooked to machines almost all the time. And when their production goes down, they're killed. They're processed as well.
Question here. So, in this world of veganism, I'm sure there's maybe like one major misconcept that you hear most often, maybe one or two. You want to share one of those with us? Misconcept.
Well, I think in this day and age, it used to be like, how do you get your protein? It's like,
Yeah.
how in the world can you get protein without animals? Like that was one for
Yeah.
many, many years. And that kind of got, I think for a large part, I mean, we're all living in our own little bubbles, right? But I think to a large degree that stopped. I stopped getting asked that. And then now it's turned to, well, if you're vegan, then you're eating all these processed foods. And so it's
Hmm.
less healthy than than eating a meat-based diet.
Right.
And so that's where I go back to yeah, just because it's vegan doesn't mean it's healthy. You can eat a lot of those ultra processed foods as a vegan. I mean, for a long time, Oreos are pretty much vegan, and that's not real food, right?